Fred, thank you so much for joining. I'm super excited to hear about your journey because we spoke a little bit prior to the interview, but not a lot. And I can tell that you've had quite the journey through visual effects and to other industries and stuff. And that's what this is all about, the human side of us all. So can
Mm.
you first tell me a little bit about how you gravitated toward film and visual effects in the first place?
Well, firstly, thanks so much for having me on. It's great to meet you and to talk with you. How did I get into visual effects? It was not a direct path. It was not something that I would have ever imagined that I would be able to do. Growing
Same.
up in a farming valley in Yorkshire in the UK, I would never have conceived that this was a possibility. And to be honest, computers didn't really interest me that much. Uh, I I actually did a degree in marine biology and oceanography, mostly because I thought it was the only thing that I thought would interest me enough to stick it out for 3 years, because it was very much drummed into me that I needed a degree. I came from that kind of a family where there is no option but to go to university and study. And it's like, well, what can I possibly do that would interest me for 3 years? I thought marine biology. There was a lot of learning of Latin names for different types of plankton. And that wasn't really what interested me. So I switched to joint honors with dynamic oceanography. So the physics of waves and tides and that kind of thing,
Wow.
which didn't really interest me, but I could do it. So I got through that, and I actually got sick partway through my final year and had to take a break and go home to my family. And it was probably one of the best things that ever happened to me, because if I continued, I don't know if I would have actually passed. So I went back to my family. Meanwhile, my mum had trained as a bookkeeper, worked for an accountant, got a job a few years later working for the local university. And a few years into that, working in the accounts department of the university set up a virtual reality center. This was in probably mid-90s. So virtual reality back then needed, they had an Onyx, Silicon Graphics Onyx, basically a
Wow.
supercomputer to drive it. And no digital projection, so it was all sort of the analog Barco projectors. So it was pretty big infrastructure, and my mum was the administrator for the organization there. So I was staying at home, recovered from being sick, and was looking for a little bit of work to do before I went back to finish my degree. And they had a couple of weeks of work to do, so I went in there, helped them out on a project on the admin side of things. And on the last few days of that, the person I was reporting to there forgot that she was supposed to write an article for a local community newspaper. She'd promised it, and it was due that day, and she'd totally forgotten about it. So she asked if I could do it, and I knocked something up quickly and gave it to her, and her reaction was, "You didn't tell me you could write." So I ended up staying on there for another, I guess, 3 or 4 months, working on writing business plans for big grant applications. And while I was doing that, I thought I should probably know something about what I'm talking about. And being an employee of a company owned by a university, I got access to some of the university courses and did an evening class in virtual reality modeling language, which was a very simple scripting language for 3D on the web. And it turned out I was pretty good at it. There were, I think, 20 something people started this evening class. There were only 3 actually made it to the end.
Wow.
And I loved it. And it was a shock to me because I hadn't been that interested in computers before that. So to find out not only that it interested me, but I was also good at it, and more interested and better at it than I was at marine biology or oceanography. So I went back, finished my degree, and I got through it because I did my honours thesis on the use of 3D computer graphics in oceanography, uh, of
Wow.
which there were no examples that I could find. So the things that I was mocking up and doing for my professor absolutely blew his mind. Um, and I think what actually got me through the degree was they had a data set. They'd basically spent a summer going across the Irish Sea, taking depth soundings at grid intervals all across the ocean. So they had this data set. And one day he said, could you just do something with it? So a couple of days later, he was looking at a 3D sort of topographic map. It's literally just a grid with offset
Right.
grid points that I plugged his data in. And like, again, it totally blew his mind. He had never seen his data visually represented that way before.
Wow.
And I think that was enough to bump my marks up just enough to scrape through my degree and then go on and do a master's in computer graphics. Thinking that I would do something around teaching aids for physics. But then I came out of it as an animator.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, that's the thing. Like sometimes you start a journey with something in mind, and then at the end of the journey, it's something else. And ergo, the journey is the whole point of all of it is the journey. Like
Mm, yeah.
we're not just we're not just people on a conveyor belt through space and time towards a single objective. It's the objective is the journey. So
Mm.
I find that's really interesting how you started. Like what a journey, and how strong you must have been to come back from your illness.
Funny enough, it's happened a couple of times.
Oh wow.
That yeah, uh, yeah. Because my other big career change actually happened post COVID
Okay.
when
So
I got
what?
really sick then.
Tell me. Oh, tell me about that.
Uh, well, yeah, I was working at DNEG. I was head of the creature department in DNEG, Vancouver at the time. And I went on a trip to the London office to spend a couple of weeks with the team in London, really helping forge that cross-location collaboration. And yeah, that was early 2020.
There's
Uh,
a major time difference there. That's like 9 hours or something, right? Or
yeah,
eight
it's
hours.
it's 8 hours offset.
Yeah.
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 Um, but we worked really closely together, the two departments. And so yeah, I was in London as the news was starting to pick up about there's this mysterious virus going around, and being in Heathrow Airport, shoulder to shoulder with strangers from all around the world. It's like this really doesn't feel comfortable. And yeah, I started to feel sick on on the day that I was flying home. Um, so the next day I was due to be in the office in Vancouver, and I called them up and said, "Yeah, I'm not feeling 100%. I don't know if I should come in or just out of caution because there's this thing on the news. If I
Well, in
should
the
stay
old
home." And they
days, it
said,
was like
"Yeah,
unless you're dying, you better drag yourself in there. That whole mentality of, oh, be strong,
yeah,
like get your ass here. And that's just thankfully not like that anymore. I hope.
yeah." But
But
they basically told me, "No, stay home and call the health line." And so I did, and spent 2 or 3 hours waiting to speak to someone. And they went through the checklist, and I was like, "Do you have these symptoms?" And I said, "Well, I've got all of them at about 20%. So what do I do?" And yeah, they eventually said, "Oh, just go and get tested." So they sent me to the test location, and this was early enough in the pandemic where the doctor that saw me wasn't even wearing a face mask,
hmm.
and yeah, did the whole stick on the tongue and
Yeah, those were really
say "ah,"
pleasant, super
and
pleasant.
yeah. So he said, "Don't worry about it. You don't have COVID, but we got to do the tests anyway. And because we're doing the tests, you've got to quarantine for 4 days." And on the fourth day, I got a phone call saying, "You tested positive." And by then, I knew that I had, because
Yeah.
I was getting pretty sick.
Mm.
And yeah, I actually got really sick with it.
Oh no.
Uh, and recovered, and it took a few months to start to get back into things, and I was starting to get back into hiking again afterwards. And then one day, like my body just shut down out on a hike, and
Wow.
yeah, turned out I had long COVID. So it was 14 months start to end.
Oh my
I
God.
had been a runner beforehand, and yeah, so I couldn't run for 14 months. Like there were times that I could barely walk.
Mm.
So it
Oh my
was
God. I'm so sorry to hear that.
but it led me to that decision of, well, I've survived this. Uh, Now is the time to maybe do this thing that's been on my mind for a while. So I signed up to study coaching. So that
Okay.
was the trigger to then say, well, I'm still alive. Maybe it's now or never. So I gave it a go again, thinking that this was a skill set that would be really useful in leading teams within visual effects, not realizing that I would have such a passion for it that I would end up leaving visual effects to focus on coaching and leadership development full time.
Wow. Remind me of your role, or tell everybody listening your role in visual effects.
I started off early on as an animator and then found that the technical side of animation suited me better. And so did a bit of work as a 3D generalist, then specialized in rigging for several
Okay.
years. So I was a creature rigger for
Mm.
several years, and then moving up into supervising uh, rigging and CFX. A little
So
bit of
you
a
had,
detour
so you had,
into
oh, sorry, go ahead.
leading technical teams. So
Mm.
manager of an R&D department for a little while. And then, yeah, I was head of the creature department at DNEG in Vancouver for 5 years.
So you, well, I wonder, do you know Steve, my friend Steve Garrett? Do you know Steve?
Oh, yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Shout out to Steve. I don't know if he
Yeah.
watches the show or not. One of the best people, one of the best people in the industry. Well, the reason I cut you off there accidentally
Mm,
was you already had some leadership sort of sensibilities, and you were looking to, maybe increase that, or, level that up a little bit. And then it
mm.
turned into like a second career, I guess, is what it sounds like.
Yeah. Yeah. Uh, and it doesn't feel like it's a big pivot. It feels like it's just a natural next step. From
Right.
my point of view, from the outside, it probably looks like it's a complete 180.
Right.
Um,
Yeah.
but it's been a slow transition for me over several years. I accidentally fell into working with a coach, uh,
Mm.
probably 10 years or more before I started studying coaching myself. I was incredibly skeptical about coaching
Yeah.
when, like, she called herself a life coach.
Yeah.
And I thought, this sounds like absolute
BS.
woo-woo nonsense.
Yeah.
Yeah. Uh,
Yeah, I mean, I get it because I don't want to talk about this too much, but the whole Tony Robbins thing for years, like I have some
mm,
sort of generational stuff going on with the Tony Robbins of it all. And for literally decades, I was like, oh, that stuff is just total garbage. And, life coach, what is that? Like, and I was very, very deeply, deeply skeptical of it
mm,
for a number of reasons. And one day he showed up on my feed talking about, I forget what it was, but I was like, "Oh my God, like he's actually seems like a good person." So, but I was so allergic to him basically
mm.
for my whole life. Based on some stuff from my childhood anyway. And I was like, no, like this, all of it's bullshit. So I painted all of it with this one blanket of, this is terrible. All these people want to do is steal your money. Nobody actually cares about you.
Mm,
Nobody wants you to be better, and it's all bullshit. And that was my attitude my whole life. And
mm,
then up until literally like a year ago, when I was going through some pretty tough transitional and psychological and spiritual transitions myself, and he popped up, and I was like, oh God, like I thought I had erased him from all of my algorithms, and here he is again, like all these decades later. Like, is he even still around? And And sure enough, I listened. I thought, and I have this, I'm going to just show everybody because I have this sticky note here. It says, listen. Oh, it might be backwards, but maybe I'll flip it. But it says, listen, because, I think that if we all just take a moment and rather than rejecting everything that comes before you based on things that happened in the past or happened to others in the past or what have you, if we just listen and be still for a moment to pretty much everything, you might learn a
Mm.
lot, or new things might come to you that you don't want to come to you, but maybe you need that at that moment. Anyway, so this is not an ad for Tony Robbins, believe me. I haven't, purchased anything from him, but but some of his speeches truly are good. And I think he's inspired a lot of people. And I have taken a lot of business courses lately, and all of them reference him. This is a long-winded way of saying, please continue. And I'm glad that you were open to that when it came across your plate.
Yeah. Well, I wasn't open about it at first.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
But um, we stayed in touch and like
With the
occasionally met
coach.
up for coffee. Yeah.
Yeah.
So once every 6 months or so, we'd meet for a coffee and chat. And it was about a year and a half later. I had been struggling for a long time, really feeling like I didn't fit in, and I was moderately successful in my career because I was good at this very, like, creature rigging is quite a
Very
niche
specific.
skill
Yes.
set. Now,
Yes.
back then, it was even more so. So, being good at that, I was able to be moderately successful, but I was still feeling that there was no growth opportunity for me, and I felt like I was missing out on opportunities. I had quite a big chip on my shoulder about feeling like I wasn't seen and respected and given the opportunities that I felt like I don't know, not necessarily, it wasn't like an ego thing that I felt I deserved it, but I knew that I had so much more potential, but I felt like no one else could see it. And that was in work situations, but also outside of work as well, in terms of dating and just connecting with friends. It's like I felt like I could get so far,
Mm-hmm.
but then I hit these invisible barriers, and I built up quite a lot of resentment about other people not seeing what my potential was and not giving me the opportunities, not
Right.
realizing what I was doing to create that situation. That I now, looking back in it, have that perspective. At the time, I couldn't see that. And so I had worked with a few different counselors over the years, and I thought I'd try a psychologist. So I went to a psychologist, and after a little chat with him, he basically said, unless you want medication, you don't need to go through any formal testing, but based on meeting you and on the conversation, I can say with 90% confidence that you have ADHD and Asperger's. So that made a lot of sense in terms of some of the ways that I was, like, my focus worked, and also my ability to feel like I connected with people and to build those relationships, again, inside and outside of work. So it made a lot of sense to me. It explained a lot of things, but then it left me stuck with, well, if I'm just hardwired this way, if I'm stuck this way, that doesn't give me any other options. So it sounds absolutely ridiculous thinking about it now, but just the way my brain worked, I thought, if I'm not capable of building relationships and acting the way that I need to act to build that trust and build those connections, what I need is someone who can teach me how to act in those situations. So I need to learn how to fake it first.
Mm.
I thought, well, how do I learn that? Like, who can help me with that? And then I remembered this coach who, before becoming a coach, was an actor. So I
Oh,
thought,
dear.
this coaching stuff still sounds like nonsense, but maybe
Right.
she can teach me how to act.
Right.
So I reached out to her and explained the situation, and yeah, she be open to helping me with this? And she said, "Oh, Fred, come on, come in and see me sometime and let's chat." And she
Yeah.
persuaded me to keep coaching a try.
Right.
Even though she knew I was skeptical about it, give it a try for 4 or 5 sessions,
Yeah.
and see if it works. I ended up working with her on and off for almost 8 years,
Wow.
and completely changed my life. It's one of the probably the single best thing I ever did, because it just opened up so much.
Yeah.
Uh,
Well, and, you probably, I'm not going to speak for you, but I have the feeling that it's not about you pretending to be whatever everyone
mm,
else expects you to be. It's about you in the world. And by the way, there's like millions and millions and millions of people just like you who are having trouble doing that same
mm,
thing. So, I've also acted my way through quite a few things. I even had somebody tell me, "Hey, you're a pretty good actor," during a job. I'm not going to say what it was, but I just laughed because I know you have to, like especially at work. Sometimes you have to do that,
mm. Yeah,
but in you can't do that in your personal life though, because or at least you can
no,
in like many situations, but you can't overall because it's going to literally eat your insides out. Like, you
yeah,
can't live like that.
and it's not. That's the thing. It's not actually necessary. What I didn't know at the time, that I, through this coaching process, learned, was that there are skills to like that I wasn't hardwired that way. So what I saw it as an absolute thing of my brain is just wired this way. So I just have to learn to adapt. What I didn't realize is that there are social skills that some people, it just comes to them naturally. Some people learn them uh, through their upbringing,
Yeah.
and some of us don't. Uh,
Yes.
but they are still skills that can be learned.
Mhm.
And emotional intelligence is one that it's hard to comprehend. If you've never had it, you don't know what you're missing, because you get through life uh, without it. So when
Yeah.
someone talks about emotional intelligence, it's like, well, how is there any other way of being than what I already know, than what I've
Yeah.
experienced all my life? Um, and what this process taught me was, yeah, there is a completely different way of interacting with the world and experiencing the world, and interacting with other people.
Yeah.
Uh, it's like I was making decisions based on only half of the information,
Yeah.
uh,
100%.
and thinking that everything I was doing was logical, but it was actually completely illogical, because I wasn't factoring in this other half of the information, which was the emotional side.
The emotional side, yeah.
So the logic doesn't actually add up without the emotions.
Right. Yeah,
It's
no,
counterintuitive
it
that
is,
that
it is.
that yeah, but we're not computers.
No, we're not. Gee, you don't say. Um, hence the reason, I started this thing in the first place
Mm,
because, I mean, that so it's interesting everything you're saying. I fully understand. I'm sorry you went through all that, but thankfully, hopefully now you're helping others get through it. And we'll talk more about that in a minute. But it's interesting because visual effects in general, just going back to that, we are sort of, the unseen or the underdogs or the
mm,
not like underappreciated team members of the filmmaking community. That's how I see it anyway.
mm,
And I know there are others, locations is one, and some other, people are not like deeply appreciated. But since we're doing, deeply creative work and finaling the film in
mm,
quiet behind the scenes, I find, sometimes the level of respect for our efforts are not there as a whole, meaning like all of us together.
yeah.
So, and when you boil that down at an individual level and you're not being seen or appreciated, also with all of that on top, it can really eat at you. Like it can really, really hurt you like deeply.
Mm,
So, number one, I totally understand. I've also been there. And I'm glad that at least you've come out of it and now you're helping others. So tell me, what does that look like for you on a day to day? Like what are you doing day to day now?
And every client is different, and that's the fun thing about it. Is yeah, I sometimes think I started off as a creative problem solver, moved into being a technical problem solver, and now I think the most interesting problems are the human ones, and almost always the ones that we create for ourselves unintentionally. uh, I honestly think that the biggest the biggest leap forward that we could make in visual effects as an industry is to learn more about the human side
Yeah.
of how we work as individuals and how we work collectively
Yeah.
together. When I think of an industry that's so high cost and low margin, and how inefficient so much of the work that we do is, largely because of communication, because egos and the ability of people to understand their own motivations and the motivations of other people, and to factor that into how we work together. Like the amount of loss that happens
Mhm.
between of just miscommunication and misunderstandings, and uh, it is a creative iterative process actually creating visual effects. So you need a certain amount of iteration, but when you look at the numbers of how many iterations go on some shots, it's a, well, there's the margins. And
Yeah.
so that critical thinking aspect, the delegation, the time management, the communications, uh, that's where the margins are, and where the
Yeah.
margins are lost.
Yes, I mean, in a way, yeah. It's also like on the front end, the budgets are getting smaller also. But I
Mm,
totally hear you, and it's funny that you say that because I see visual effects as like because I'm a producer and a supervisor. I start from the very beginning of
mm,
the script stage, and I see it all the way through. So I see. I mean, if you think visual effects is inefficient, whoa! I mean, the film set, man. I
yes.
mean. It's amazing how like some of I think I mentioned this on another episode, but the shooting ratios
Mm,
sometimes alone, and that's just like the stuff that we film, never mind waiting around. Who was I talking to yesterday? We were talking about because on set there's a crew call and like
mm,
everybody rushes through traffic and God knows what it took for them to get there. I don't know if you're a parent, but I'm a parent, and I mean, just saying goodbye to your children, like making sure that they're doing the things that they need to do, and that, like there's an entire life that
mm,
happens before I arrive to work. Like I've lived a whole day already.
yeah.
And sometimes crew call is like 5 a.m. or whatever it is. Anyway, I digress. So we all rush there, rush, 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 rush. We're all getting there. Okay, we're there for crew call. And then they do like a 2 hour private blocking. Like, why
Mm,
did we all rush here? Why did 125 people rush here, leave their families
mm,
and everything else? And now you're doing private blocking for an hour or 2 hours or sometimes more. I was on a project. It doesn't matter because I'm glad I can't remember what it was, because I wouldn't be able to talk about it anyway. But there was like a whole morning of private blocking, which was
mm,
like it was like 4 or 5 hours of private blocking, and it's like the crew was sitting around. Everyone is sitting around. Why are we doing that? Yeah, the inefficiencies run deep in the industry, I
yeah.
guess is what I'm trying
Yes.
to say. But yeah,
And so much of that leads visual effects to be reactive. So
a
we're
hundred thousand
in the way that we
percent.
work, we're
Yeah.
very reactive, and there are times that we need to be reactive, obviously, because the
Yeah.
goalposts are shifting, and uh, some clients are more organized than others, uh, and so yeah, it needs to be reactive. But there's
Yeah.
times that it needs to be reactive, and then there's times that we need to switch from reactive state back to proactive,
Yes.
and to
Yeah.
actually
Yeah.
be structured and organized in how we do things. And way too many productions I've seen, once they cross that line into reactive, they
Hmm.
stay in reactive state the
Yeah.
entire way through to delivery.
Yeah.
And those
It's tough.
are the worst shows to be on.
Yeah.
Um, so that ability from a leadership point of view to switch states back from reactive to proactive
Mm-hmm.
um, once the immediate crisis has been dealt with. That is such an incredibly valuable and under talked about skill set
Yeah.
in supervision and production.
Yeah. 100%. I totally agree. Like when I was working on facility side, it's amazing how different all of the projects are so different.
Mm,
Every, sometimes you have like an ultra hands-on director or showrunner where
mm,
they're like every single thing has to be exactly what's in their imagination. And then sometimes you have like I was talking to one of my creative partners yesterday, and we were just talking about, just sort of along these same lines. And there was this one project where it was literally a person in front of a green screen, and they're like, yeah, just pitch us something. And we're like, well, but is there a brief? Or nope, no brief. Just pitch us something. It's like, okay, yeah, no problem. I mean, we're creative people, so we just like bashed our heads all together and came up with this cool
mm.
concept. But then you're for sure in reactive mode because you're not starting with a solid plan from the get-go,
Yeah.
from the creative heads on the client side. So yeah, that was interesting. I mean, that's just one example, but yeah.
Mm. But there's ways that you can, like, there's always some things which are outside of your control.
Yeah.
And knowing what they are and knowing how to, I think in terms of like uncertainty is a topic that comes up so much these days. Uh, it's always been a big one in visual effects, but I think now with everything that's happening in the industry and technology and in the world in general, things are getting more and more uncertain.
Yeah.
Uh, and I think as humans, we only have a certain amount of capacity for uncertainty.
Yeah.
So we can be flexible in some areas, and which means we need to compensate by being rigid in others.
Yeah.
And like, I think a large part of my work is about helping people be intentional about that. It's like,
Mhm.
where do I need that flexibility, and where do I need that rigidity? So I've got that sense of stability.
Mhm.
There's enough things that I'm certain about that I can allow, and especially in an industry that's creative and innovative,
Mhm.
we need enough of that space, that capacity for uncertainty to be ring fenced for the creative and um, for the innovation. So that means we have to be intentional about where we have structures and where we have that certainty that we need,
Yeah.
um, so that
As a
we have that
protection.
capacity
Yeah.
to protect the
Yeah.
creative space.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, as creatives, like we have to really protect ourselves. And that's why a lot of the negative vibes, sorry to use that
Mm.
word, out there, it's like, well, everything's vibes now. Um,
It's the word of the
everything,
year, I think.
yeah, and everything's also POV. I'm like, what the fuck? No, that's not what POV means, guys. Like on Instagram or whatever, POV this, POV that. No, you're in the frame. That means it's not your POV because it's a video of you. Like that's not POV, okay? Um, so what I was just thinking while you were chatting about all of these, fence posts and protecting
Mm.
your space and everything. How do you do that as a coach? Do you have a coach, or do you said yesterday you were at a conference, like how do you continue to grow your capacity to take all of this on?
Um, a lot of it comes down to that awareness, and it's not always easy. Like, uh, and for me, it's not about finding a pattern that works consistently day after day. I'm a huge believer that we go through cycles, and uh, that there's peaks and troughs all of the time. What's important to me is to recognize as soon as possible when I'm in a trough. So
Mm,
when I'm on autopilot in different aspects of my life, and again in that reactive state, if I'm just falling back to basic old pre-programming,
Yeah.
rather than doing things intentionally and
Right.
purposefully. So for me, it's about maintaining that. It's kind of like going to the gym.
Yeah.
So
Like
that
building your
ability to
muscles.
know, to recognize.
Hmm.
When I think about emotional intelligence, one of the things that comes to mind to me is um, probably 15 plus years ago. I was talking with a friend who was going through a lot of challenges with his partner at the time, his girlfriend at the time. They were having a lot of arguments,
Hmm.
and we were talking about it. He said uh, he loses every single argument with her. And it took him a while to figure it out. And eventually he figured out there's one thing that she does that wins every single argument he had with her. And it was, she would say, when you do this, it makes me feel that. In the middle of
Right.
any argument they had, she would say this.
Right.
And it took him a while to figure it out. And he said, I eventually, thinking about it, realized she can do that in the moment. She knows that when I say something or do something, she can articulate what that causes her to feel.
Right.
Uh, he said it takes me about 3 months.
Yeah.
So
That's a
it's
male-female
looking
thing
back on it.
also.
Yeah, yeah. It could be everyone's a little bit different
Yeah.
about it, but again, it's also a skill set.
Yes.
When
Yeah.
he said this, it like that totally resonated with me, and for
Yeah.
years, I took that on myself as like knowing that it was the same for me. It was about 3 months, even uh, back when I suffered from depression. It would be about a 3 month cycle that uh, I wouldn't know that I was in one of those troughs
Right.
of depression until about 3 months later.
Right.
I didn't actually
Right.
know in the moment that was my current state.
That's what that was. Yeah. You can see it
Now I'm
hovering above
aware,
yourself.
like
Yeah.
worst case scenario, it might take me a couple of days, but a lot of
Mm.
the time I know what I'm feeling and what I'm sensing in the moment
Right.
because I've been going to that that gym and learning, like lifting those weights
Yeah.
for almost 15 years now.
Right.
So again, building up uh, that ability, like that's so much of what emotional intelligence is, as far as I'm concerned, is being able to understand what your current state is and how that changes how you respond to different things that happen.
Hmm.
Um, so, uh, like I say, worst case scenario, it might take me a couple of days to realize what my current state is and how that impacts how I think and how I approach things,
Yeah.
which makes it very easy to pivot when I'm stressed out about something. It
Right.
might only be a few hours that it takes me to realize. And again, ideally, if I'm really present in a conversation, especially in a leadership role, when I'm having conversations, and I know in the moment, okay, this is making me feel defensive.
Yeah.
Like having that information, access to that information in the moment, rather than 3 months later,
Yeah.
completely changes how I respond to the situation.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
and this is why I think it is one of the most critical things for, especially for people in supervisor roles
Mm.
who are dealing with so much pressure. I mean,
Yeah.
visual effects supervising must be one of the hardest roles
Yeah.
because, especially vendor side, because
Yes.
you've got three different masters. Like you've got to
Yeah.
keep the client happy. You've got to look after your team, make sure they have what they need, and look after
Yeah.
their welfare. But also the company that's employing you, you
Hmm.
need to look after their business and financial interests as well. So
Yeah. The owner
balancing
operators
all
have
three of
it.
those,
Yeah. The owner
yeah,
operator supervisors have it even harder
mm,
because,
yeah,
and we do need to allow for a little bit of grace for those people because they're getting it from all sides.
oh,
And
absolutely,
not to excuse bad behavior either, but uh, not bad behavior, but not to
mm,
excuse inappropriate behavior, because I know that things can get heated sometimes, but It is
Yeah.
something there is something to be said for somebody who is taking all that risk all on
Mm.
upon a single person or a group of people, because they've got the clients, the people working for them, the creative clients and the banks or whoever, so
Yeah.
all of that together is a lot.
Totally.
And without those people taking
Yeah.
those risks, a lot of us don't have jobs. So
Yeah.
and
Oh,
yeah.
absolutely. This is in no way a criticism of it. Like I say, it is such
Oh yeah.
it's
No.
an almost impossible situation to be in,
Yeah.
to balance all of those different needs, and to have to make decisions in the moment. And
Yeah.
again, if you're only working on half of the information because you don't have that ability to process the impact that it's having on you,
Mhm.
that changes how you react in the moment,
Yeah.
then so I know that I'm very biased in this, because it's my job. But uh, in an ideal world, every single supervisor on every single show should have a coach that they're
Yeah.
working with, where they can work through and actually help them process this stuff.
Yeah.
Um,
Because actors have coaches, like, every actor has
yeah,
a coach.
yeah.
And
Every athlete has a coach.
every athlete
Every
has a coach.
like
Yes.
and in a lot of other, like in a lot of tech companies,
Mhm.
um a lot of the senior and mid-level execs have coaches, and
Yeah. Yeah.
it's something that our industry hasn't woken up to.
Yeah.
uh and I think it's like, even just leadership training is something which uh we still have a long way to go.
Yeah, and I find the training, because I've taken some of those trainings, again, when I was on facility side,
Mm,
there's like leadership trainings and things like that. I find a lot of it falls flat because it's not
generic.
organic enough. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
it's too generic and it's not organic enough. And now it's like some of it's online. It's like I get the coaching online because I mean interviews like this, like we're connecting, it's online.
Mm,
However, you can't only do that. So I find then I also the team building thing in person, again, it feels like a little bit forced. So people are they hold back, I find, because I've
mm,
been to a lot of these things, and in high school we had to do a lot of those, and now I'm thankful for those, actually, because when you're getting everyone in a room, and we've done it, I'm pointing at my kids' school because it's like a block away there, but we've done some stuff like anti-bullying rallies where we
mm.
get everyone together. And I know some of the introverted kids, obviously I was one of them, although maybe not obviously, because now I'm doing this. I never thought I'd be in front of a camera ever in my life, but that's a side discussion. But I understand, because I can see the introverted kids. It's really hard for them. And by the way, they're the ones who are being bullied the most.
Mm.
So they need it the most. And meaning, like, everybody together needs to see that there are different types of personalities.
Yeah.
And going back to what you were saying earlier, we don't all, like, in fact, we can't all be the same. So
And we
if we're all
shouldn't.
the same, and we shouldn't,
Yeah. Like, the best teams are diverse,
diverse. Yes.
and think not just diverse in terms of outward appearance, but diverse in terms of how we think about things and how we process information, and what our
Yeah.
strengths are.
Yeah.
And but they're the hardest to lead because they're all different,
Hmm.
and leading people who think differently to you, like, challenges.
Yeah.
It is challenging to the leader. So
A hundred
yeah.
percent. It's challenging for everybody because, I mean, look at the state of the world these days. I mean, everyone wants everyone to. There's this, God, what is it called? There's this Bob Dylan movie where there's like four actors and they all play Bob Dylan.
Mm,
I forget what it's called, but anyway, Kate Blanchett she
yes.
plays one of the Bob Dylans. And I use this all the time because it's funny, but she's in an interview playing Bob Dylan. So I guess he's in an interview, and they're like, kind of like pressing her, like, what, tell us this or
Mm.
tell. And then she goes like, you just want me to say what you want me to say. And I love that line. Like, I just love it so much. And I always say it, but anyway, but it's just kind of true worldwide for, like, all, globally, and with everything that's
Mm.
happening now and everything that has happened in the past. I mean, I don't think anyone can claim that this is the worst time we've ever had. Like, it simply isn't.
Yeah.
I think maybe it's the worst because there's more people now. So if there are more people, like 8 billion people, then that means that more people are suffering. But we're not. It's we've had so many like massive famines with like millions
Mm,
and millions of people dropping dead, or like the plague that wiped out 2/3 of Europe, or whatever. I'm just saying,
yeah.
like, this is not the worst time that we've had. It feels bad because this is where we are, and sometimes things get
Mm,
really scary, and we have all this access to information and all this other stuff. But right now it is not 100% great, and we're always fighting online and fighting in person
mm,
and road rage and all this other stuff, and it's because you just want people to think what you think. But if everyone does
yeah.
that, then it's just super boring. It's
Yeah.
like not the case. That's not why we're here.
It's so awesome that you brought this angle up, because one of the areas that I'm most interested in, and actually working on, uh, uh, I don't know exactly what format it'll be, and probably adaptable into multiple, but working on a training, like, um, uh, all the training I do is all very interactive, because it's about helping people navigate things from their own perspective rather than just here's the information. Uh,
Yeah. Yeah.
but yeah, working on a program that's around creative conflict, because I think
Mm-hmm.
it's something that's needed in the world, but I think it's something that's really needed in creative industries as well,
Yeah.
is how to disagree and
Yeah.
work together, and to make disagreement a constructive part of the process. Like,
Yeah.
conflict is something which like has got such negative associations to it, but we
Mm-hmm.
actually need juxtaposing ideas and points of view, and again, diverse different experiences
Yeah.
to come together. Like, so much innovation and creativity comes from the clash of different ideas, and
Yeah.
we
I
need to be
mean,
able to work through that positively.
yeah, because yeah, it's like sharpening a pencil. You can't sharpen a pencil without the
Yeah.
blades. You need, um, like, what are we gonna do? Just sit around in some cosmic soup where we're all just like kumbayaing
Mm,
together? It like there's no progress, there's no excitement, there's no anything there. Do that for an
mm,
afternoon. I'm not saying anything against that, but just don't do it for your whole life,
yes.
because and the easiest thing to do is just to sit there and do nothing.
Mm,
And a lot of people do that because they're just shutting down, and like, you know what, I just want to sit and chill, I just want to do nothing, and I just
yeah.
want peace, and I want peace too. I really want peace. But we can't get anywhere by doing
Mm,
literally nothing. So
yeah. I guess my angle on it is, so much of it is just, there are capacities that we have access to
yeah.
that we just haven't. They're muscles that are just underdeveloped,
Yes.
because we haven't used them enough. And to be able to be in a space of, like, especially in a creative context, like working on visual
Yeah.
effects, there shouldn't be anything which leads to an argument where people are getting hurt, or people are feeling
Mm,
abused or shut down.
yeah.
We can handle those disagreements in a way that is constructive, and doesn't become personal. Uh,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
I think my sense is, as an industry, we're shifting further and further away from that. So it's something that needs to actively uh, be
Be
redirected, so
addressed.
that
Yeah.
so that we're actually proactive in, yeah, this isn't going to be comfortable,
Mm-hmm.
but it's still safe.
Well, what do you think? Because part of that also these days is like we have this broiling existential crisis
Mm,
in the back of our minds, and even though it may not always be at the forefront, it's in the back, and our body knows that. So
mm,
when we are in conflict with people, it's no longer just about, oh, the shot or the pipeline or the farm or for those who are
mm,
wondering what the farm is, it's the render farm. Anyways, it's too much to get into now, but there's so many conflicts over those types of things.
yes.
And the arguments are no longer just about that. Now it's also about the broiling existential crisis and am I
Yeah.
going to have a job in 2 weeks?
Hmm.
Or am I going to have a job or a career in 10 years, 5 years, 2 years? And I think that people are really um, suffering
Yeah.
underneath it all.
Yeah. Again, if we only have, I mean, this is a uh, an artificial construct, but just helps explain my take on it. If we have a finite capacity for uncertainty, and 2/3 of that is taken up by what's going on in the news, what's going on in the world, the amount of capacity we have to deal with uncertainty uh, in our work environment is vastly diminished, which
Hmm.
means the when some when we're lobbying for resources and we don't get what we want, we can feel that it's like it's amplified
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
because that's it's layered on top of all of the other uncertainty that we're processing.
Yeah.
Um, and again, there's no easy answer to that. But the first step is awareness of it. The first
Yeah.
step is knowing that, oh, I was angry today in that meeting when I didn't need to be angry, but I was angry because I went into the day uh, already stressed and worked up because of what I saw in the news last night, whatever it is. So again, it's
Or
that
because
awareness
Or
that
because I
really
feel
helps
like,
us.
yeah,
Yeah,
or because like, oh, AI is going to take my job in
yeah,
10 years or 5 years or 2 years or whatever it is. And then you have that at the back of your mind. Suddenly you're arguing from two sides. Like, it's like, just to go back to like the war
mm,
scenario, you're fighting on two fronts instead of one.
yeah,
And you are running out. You're going to run out of resources there within yourself. I mean, like your internal resources.
yeah. And having a place, like, we all need a place to be able to process that.
Yeah.
And yeah, because it's not easy to just switch that off. Like,
No.
I stay up to date with what's going on in the news. A lot of global news stuff, probably way more than I should. One of the things that's really helped me is in uh, what's the book? The Stephen Covey, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, I think it is.
Oh, yeah. Yes. Yes.
That there's something, I think, in the first chapter of that he talks about the sphere of influence and the sphere of control.
Yeah.
That there are we got this big sphere of influence, all of these different things which influence us, and today it's bigger than ever because the access to information
It's the
and news
access.
and all of the horrible things that are on around the world are bombarding us. And I think it's really important to stay open to that and to be aware of all of that
Hmm.
and to get angry and upset and everything like that. But then also to recognize there's this other sphere, a much smaller one inside that, which is the sphere of influence, the
Yeah.
things that we can actually do
Sphere
something
of
about.
control, you mean? Yeah.
Yes, sphere
Yeah.
of control. So being able to separate those two and like being aware of that we're angry, that we're influenced by this, that we have a stance on it,
Hmm.
that we stand up for the things that are important to us.
Yeah.
Um, but knowing what we can, like, where our energy needs to go in a
Hmm.
day, where we can actually achieve the outcomes that actually matter to us. So, and some of that is actually a lot of the times we don't make good decisions because we haven't actually done the work to identify what it is that we actually want. What's the outcome that we're looking for, and what are the priorities
Hmm.
that we have? Again, it comes back to that idea of working on autopilot rather than doing things intentionally.
Yeah.
So what coaching is, like, or one aspect of what coaching is it's doing that processing to actually work out these are the things that matter to me.
Yeah.
This is the pattern. These are the patterns that unique patterns to me that tend to get me stuck. And the more aware we are of them, they might still get us stuck. But if we already have done that work to actually identify them, it's a lot easier to get unstuck again.
Yeah. Yeah. And when you talk about the sphere of control, I mean, We're talking about micro habits that can really make a big
Mm,
change because, I mean, even things like your own diet or your own energy, like your own habits
mm,
or your own courses you're taking or things that you're doing for yourself that are going to enrich your day for
yeah,
you. Those are the types of things that you can do that are really going to make micro changes and feel better um
totally. Yeah,
overall, because then you have, say, a new skill set or a new piece of knowledge or a new, and it's not just about it being new, it's like adding to like who you are as a whole. When you're in a place, you always, I don't know about you, but I always wonder, like, oh, what happened here? And you try to think of the story, and again, because we're
mm,
storytellers, you try to imagine the story of where you are. I've spent some time in Rome, so obviously that's like an obvious one.
mm,
Because like there's just so much that's happened there over thousands of years. But even a small thing like your own backyard, you think of how what the story was and how you got to this point and where it's going to go in the future. Like, what is this going to look like in 100 years? And I
mm,
always imagine that. I imagine it all kind of like time lapsing in front of me, and how, I find that life is just such an interesting story. Like, no matter where you are, whether it's a forest or some ruins somewhere or your own backyard or whatever it is. Like, I
mm.
just find that finding joy or finding those interesting stories in like small places, like small moments, I mean, I really enjoy that. But anyway, I digress again.
Oh, that's
uh,
awesome. Yeah.
yeah, I find it fun. There's and just going back to conflict and about how, conflict resolution, what you were talking about earlier. One of my favorite books on screenwriting is it's called The Way of the Screenwriter. He's actually from Toronto, the author of this book, The Way of the
Mm,
Screenwriter. And he helped me through one of my screenplays years back. But anyway, in the book, one of the main mantras that he keeps repeating over and over again is conflict, by the way, proceeds, which means without conflict, we can't move forward. So,
mm,
and again, going back to just shaping each other and understanding like where we fit in society and everything else, and that holds true for storytelling. So his storytelling techniques are really based in like those sort of life skills. Anyways, it's my favorite screenwriting book.
even going back to the hero's journey,
Yes,
that
exactly.
there's
Yeah.
always an inner and an outer conflict that some kind of conflict that leads to that change of direction, uh,
Mm-hmm.
which
Well,
yeah,
like you getting sick, right? That
yes,
that changed your
absolutely.
trajectory
You've
a
got to
couple
go
of
through
times.
through the dark times to sometimes to find the light.
Yeah. I was
Um,
on a really difficult job semi recently. Again, won't mention what it was, but some people were having a hard time, and I was like, look,
mm,
the only way to the end of this job is through it.
yeah,
So you just pull up your bootstraps. We're going to get through whatever this is. And at the end of it, we're going to be through it already. So just imagine yourself through it.
mm,
And, we just need to do that because you can't quit. I'm not talking about like obviously people change careers and like, but
yeah,
that's not the same as quitting. Like so when you're in the middle of something that you have to finish, you can't quit.
yeah.
So, and that's super important also just for personal integrity reasons, like, just don't quit. Again, like if you're being abused or something, or, I'm saying
Mm.
obviously there are exceptions to every rule, but in general, I'm just saying. But yeah, well, I'm really glad that we've had this discussion. I get a little bit
It's
tangential
great,
sometimes.
but
Yeah.
that's again, that's part of the creative process. That it's not
Yeah.
uh, the the creative process, the storytelling process, and the coaching process as well. Just
Yeah.
yesterday, when I was talking to people about coaching, it's not linear.
No.
Sometimes when we keep hitting the same problem head on. What we actually need to do is instead of trying to fight against it, we need play. We actually
Mm,
need to do something silly and ridiculous that
mm,
sneaks us in around the back to find the
yeah.
different perspective that we need.
Yeah, and let the energy out, I find. And, just going back to parenting a bit, one of my children was having some problems with his teacher because she was so rigid, rigid,
Mm.
rigid, rigid, rigid. And like, they're not rigid. First of all, they're
Yeah.
boys and they're wild. They're wild. I mean, what can I say? My kids are totally wild and I love them so much. And they're super creative and like
Yeah.
super intelligent and wild, like wild, wild, wild. And I said to her, because she was like bringing me in to talk. And I go, lay it on me, lady. Like, just tell me, what is it? And she's like, oh, but he won't sit at his desk. And I was like, he's 8. He's not going to sit at
Yeah.
a desk for hours. Like, he's just simply not going to do that. Oh, but
Yeah.
there are rules. And I was like, you're going to have to learn to kind of flex a little bit and,
Mm.
just expand your horizons a little bit. So sure enough, the other day, he came home and he's like, she let us exercise. So she saw that the class was getting like really, really antsy, and not just him, but
Mm.
like everybody. And so she just turned on some music, and everybody, for like not the whole class, not the whole
Mm.
day, but just for like a minute or two, and started like working out and jumping around and all this other stuff. And I mean, what a difference. Like, what a difference that was.
Oh, there's so much I want to talk about, the creative process, and one of my you talked about one of your favorite books. One of my favorite books is called Messy, uh,
Mm.
by
Is
Tim
it about
Harford.
my office?
It's one of the excuses I use to explain mine outside of the camera view. Um,
Yeah, exactly.
but
Like,
it really is about how random. Like the whole book is about how randomness,
yeah.
an introduction of randomness, and even as some people in creative processes, because they found that works, deliberately introduce randomness into the creative process. Like the
Wow.
classic example is Brian Eno, who
Yeah.
had what he called oblique strategies. So you can still buy them if you Google like very expensive deck of cards called oblique strategies, and
Okay.
it's all
Never heard of
things
this.
that. So he used to use that in the studio if like the musicians were playing and it just wasn't landing right. There was something missing and it was hard to figure out what it was.
Mm.
Basically randomly pull out one of these cards and everyone had to do what it said on the card, and there's all sorts of crazy things
Amazing.
like the musicians have to swap instruments, and so you got the drummer playing bass or whatever, and
Oh
how
my
will
God.
that add something different into the mix?
Yeah.
One of the great examples in the book that I love is uh, on the London Underground, like the tube network, the
Hmm.
subway network in London. After they introduced the swipe cards to digitally,
Yeah.
like for digital payment, they also had this massive amount of data that they could track movement, and they
Right.
made that available to universities. And one of the university research groups looked at the aftermath of a strike. So some of the lines were closed for a few days because of a driver strike, and they analysed uh, people who everyday commuters took the same route into work, and then that one week where it's disrupted, and they had to find different ways. And something crazy like 20% of people didn't go back to their original route afterwards. They found a
Wow.
different route. So just that fact
Wow.
of the tube strike happening forced them to think outside of their rigid pattern that they were in and find a different solution that they wouldn't have found if it wasn't for that inconvenience of having the strike.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, 80% reset back to what they were already doing afterwards, but 20% didn't. They
Wow.
found a different way in.
That's
Uh,
amazing.
so it's just yeah.
That's
Uh,
amazing. That's like the Jane Jacobs thing. I don't know if you've read some Jane Jacobs before, but in Manhattan, she used to be, I don't know her actual job title, and I'm not going to look at, like, I try not to look things up.
mm,
I don't ever look anything up during the chats because I find it
yeah.
just distracting. I'm not going to go and Google whatever it was. But anyway, Jane Jacobs, she was working, in New York City, and she was, with city planning or whatever it was, whatever her exact title was, I don't know. But
Mm,
and they were tearing down a highway that was like kind of going through the city, And she's like, yeah, you have to just tear it down. And they're like, you can't tear it down. It'll cause like massive, massive disruption.
Mm.
No, like it's going to cause total chaos and it's going to be the end of the city forever. Like basically just like catastrophic. But the thing is that New York has a really good and already did have a really good subway system at that point.
Mm.
We can't do this in Toronto because Toronto doesn't have a good subway system yet. But we're like 100 years behind the times.
Yeah.
But New York City did already.
Mm.
And she's like, just trust me, just tear it down. So they tore it down because it was in disrepair. And it was, anyway, she
Mm.
was right. The whole point of this is that she was right. It didn't cause mass chaos. People found another way.
Yeah.
And it opened up green spaces and it opened up neighborhoods and it opened up all, more foot traffic to places. Again, that only worked. I'm just going to caveat all of this again and say that only worked because it already had this massive underground network. That wouldn't work here.
Yes,
So,
but again, the principles, like, it wouldn't have been the subway, but people would have found a way.
yeah,
I think that's a metaphor that I want to bring into just thinking about all I talk about the uncertainty and
yeah,
will I still have a job in 2 months or
mm,
2 years or uh, people are so adaptable. We will find a way. It
yes,
might not look like it looks now.
yeah,
It might not be the commuter route that we do every day that we're so
yes,
used to that we can't imagine anything else
yes,
until we hit that disruption. And that disruption, like having been a commuter in London in the past, when those strikes happened, that week sucks.
yeah,
But but there's something on the other side. We can't see necessarily what it is, but
yeah,
having that confidence that we have, like people in visual effects uh, and animation are. It's one of the reasons why, even though I don't work directly in the industry, I still consider myself very much rooted in this industry because I love the people,
yeah,
the
yeah,
creativity, the innovation, the passion that people have.
yeah,
Uh, it is it's like a gravitational pull. Like once you fall in love with it, no matter
mm-hmm,
what you do, it's very hard to escape.
yeah.
And I don't know what the future will look like, but I know the capability and the passion and the creativity and innovation will go somewhere.
Yeah, I mean, look, if you're already working in visual effects and animation, that means that you're already super smart. So use those brains because
Yeah,
you've got them already. Like you're already massively ahead of most people. So don't fret, don't fray.
mm,
You'll oh God, I was gonna rhyme, but I didn't want to. I was gonna say you'll find a way, but that was not intentional.
I think that might
um
be the title of your
my
episode.
book. Yeah, yeah, yeah. But no, I mean, okay, so just to restart, because that sounded really cheesy. If you're already there, like if you're already in this industry, like you're already massively ahead,
Mm,
you're going to be okay. You may have to think outside the box, and
yeah.
I personally have started doing that already, just to
Mm,
diversify and understand, more things, like I was saying earlier. But don't just pigeonhole yourself into one thing. Like if you're a
yeah.
creature TD, like that is the one of the most specific jobs ever. And you've found this whole other totally different industry. So,
Yeah.
and that's amazing. And everybody can do that also if they want, or if they need to.
And yeah, a lot of the work that I do when I do individual work with people is really about helping them identify their strengths.
Mm,
It's amazing how few of us use the skills and abilities and strengths that we have
yeah.
every day and take them for granted and don't actually
Yes.
know that, like, one way that I quite often put it is if you took everyone in your city and mashed them down, blended them, and extracted one completely average person out of it, and then you compare yourself to them, there are so many things which set you apart from them. and
Yeah.
every single one of them is both a superpower and a kryptonite. Because anything that sets you apart
Yeah.
gives you strengths and abilities
Mm.
that you can leverage, and every single one of those things that sets you apart.
Yeah.
So one of the exercises I quite often do with people is, if you can't identify what the strengths are, like some people, it's a lot easier to identify what their weaknesses are than what their strengths are. Well,
Mm.
what is it about that weakness that sets you apart? Because there is
Yeah.
a strength in that as well.
In that. Yeah.
Yeah.
100%.
And to identify, like, when we have that knowledge, because my skill set, yes, it was applied in building creatures, yeah, rigging creatures and the math and mechanics and everything like that. But that was an aspect of how I thought through problems, and an aspect of how I processed information. And so there's
Mm-hmm.
strengths in that can
Yeah.
be applied to things that, again, apply now
Yeah.
in a completely different realm.
Yeah. 100%. I mean, and life is just so interesting, and it's long if we're lucky, and there's so many opportunities to do other things. So,
Yeah.
but okay, well, we'll probably wrap it up. I didn't realize we've
Yeah.
already been talking for so long.
I
But
Well, thank you so much. This has
oh my
been wonderful.
gosh, yeah, it's been great, and I'm really glad that we reached out to each other. And are there any, sort of final thoughts for, maybe people in film in general, or people like wider audience, or any kind of closing thoughts that you'd like to share?
The main thing is, like, we're in this together, I think, and if you don't have the support network, they're there. Like, uh, whether it's through organizations like the VES, there's lots of local and global organizations. Uh, there's communities. Like, obviously, there's a handful of us coaches who have been in the industry and have actually trained
Hmm.
to work as coaches. So there are so many different support structures out there. So you never have to be on your own through any of this.
And
And that goes for the people at the bottom and the people like CEOs, supervisors, producers. Like,
yeah,
there's so much that we're dealing with and processing that you don't have to be on your own
yeah.
doing that.
And if people were to reach out to you, where do they find you?
And LinkedIn's probably the easiest place
Yeah.
to find me.
Okay, well, so great to talk to you. We'll put your LinkedIn profile if anyone's looking for a coach. And yeah, it's been super great
Or just a
talking to
chat.
you.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, or just a chat. Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. Okay, well, have a great day, and thank you so much. Thank you so much for joining. And
Oh,
yeah,
thank you,
we'll talk
Stacey.
again soon.
Yeah. Talk soon.
Okay, thank you.
Bye.
Bye bye.